You're welcome again. Thank you so much for being here. You were too busy, I know, like last 20 minutes we could have you here. And we know that you have another meeting after us, so to keep it short, I can start directly. Like, who is Sunny? Can you a bit like introduce yourself to the community, please?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Sunny. I'm one of the co-founders of Osmosis, which is a DEX app chain built in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I've been working on Cosmos since summer of 2017, so a little bit over 6 years now. And just excited, really happy to see how far the ecosystem has grown since when I started. It was like 10 years.
Sunny, I was wondering, like, how did you came up with the idea of Osmosis? How did you see the opportunity and, like, as far as I know, you were in Berkeley and, like, I have a friend who is your friend, maybe Anthony, you would remember him. Like, I really wondered the story behind Osmosis, and I think most of the audience too.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, like I said, I was working on Cosmos, part of the core team at AIB for 3 years, and then there was the whole story that happened there. If anyone wants to ask about that, you can, I guess. But then I was thinking about, okay, what do I want to do next in the space? And we were really thinking about like, okay, what are the biggest challenges that we wanted to solve when we got into crypto, and we saw there has been like 3 main big challenges, which were the proof of stake, scalability, and privacy. And I think with the work that we did at Cosmo, AIB, and launching the Cosmos Hub and Tendermint, it was like proof of stake, like done, right? Like, today we've solved it, right? Like after Ethereum switched to proof of stake, I think over 50% of crypto market cap is running on proof of stake now, and so it's like, okay, we've accomplished our goal there. A lot of it, as Marco was saying, a lot of it has kind of inspired by Tendermint. Okay, so next was scalability. I think there's a lot of progress that has already happened on scalability, and I think there's a lot more that's continuing to happen, and a lot of people are working on it and like making good progress on it. So we were confident that that will happen no matter what, and we don't need to go make that happen. So that's why we were kind of left with the third one, which was privacy. We were like, okay, this is like the thing that like we, at least for the co-founders, and it's something we're very passionate about. And we were like, we didn't see enough people in the crypto space making real headways in that field. And so we were like, okay, let's work on privacy stuff. And so what are the things we need to do on privacy? And I think, we started like a lot of other projects usually started from like, privacy as the pitch, right? Like, Zcash is like, it's the privacy thing. Our take was like, no, I don't think privacy is a product, I think privacy is a feature. And so we were like, okay, well, we need to build a product that people want to use and is compelling, and then you push the privacy stuff as part of that, right? Like, you see today Apple is pushing pretty heavily on a lot of the privacy stuff, but no one buys an iPhone because of the privacy features, right? They buy an iPhone for all of these other reasons, and then there's just like really good privacy features that they built in. And that was kind of what we were trying to do, where it's like, okay, let's build an amazing product, a DEX that people want to use, and then we'll use that as our vehicle to push our views on, push private first stuff. And so one of the main things we were working on was like mempool privacy, so we can make sure that when you make a transaction before it hits the chain, like when it's in the mempool, no one can read it, so no one can front run you, no one can sandwich you. And then now we're also starting to work on actual chain level privacy, where it's like how do you have a place where you can, today on every DEX, everyone can see which account is making which trade, you're leading your trading strategy, all this stuff, and so we're working on how you make that private as well.
Thank you so much. I really like Osmosis as a product, and this brings another question to my mind. Like, we are struggling with the UX also. Jackson Polin was giving a speech about it. I think like Osmosis has accomplished a lot about the UX, but still we have a long way to go. What do you think about the UX problem? Like, what is the next step of maybe Osmosis, but also like the whole ecosystem? What do you think about this?
Yeah, so this is actually going to be a big topic of my talk tomorrow. But basically, 3 days ago, I asked one of my friends, who is a software engineer at a fintech company. I asked him to do a challenge, and I recorded it, and I'll put it on YouTube. But I told him, buy $10 a maker on Uniswap. That was the challenge. And like he doesn't have, I don't know, he doesn't have anything installed yet. And it took him like, I think over an hour to figure out how to like install MetaMask, how to use the fiat, how to use the get thinker. And the fees was a big one. That really hung him up because he got himself some USDC and then he tried to use it to buy it and he's like, oh wait, I don't have ETH for fees. And then he's like, oh okay, let me go buy ETH. But wait a second, I can't buy ETH on Uniswap if I don't have ETH for fees. And so he was like stuck in this circle for a bit. So basically, by watching that video, I kind of realized, okay, I took like notes the whole time. I think there's like 3 overarching concerns, or the 3 big categories of problems. There's some smaller ones. I think like some things on the UI are confusing, and those are minor things. I think the 3 large categories were wallets are very confusing. This whole concept of browser extensions and seed phrases and whatnot. So that's actually what's going to be my talk about tomorrow, about smart accounts and how you want to fix the wallet onboarding story. The second issue was the fiat on-ramps don't work, like MoonPay. So Uniswap has MoonPay built into the site, and it's like, first of all, it was confusing that we could only buy USDC and ETH using MoonPay, and he got very confused. He was like, wait, I'm trying to buy Maker, and why isn't this working? So that was confusing for him. And then also like MoonPay just kept declining it and stuff. So here I'm actually quite excited for some of the stuff that Cato is working on, where like one, you'll be able to buy not just USDC or Atom or something. You can buy with Cato, you'll be able to buy any asset on Osmosis, because what it will do is they're going to focus on fiat on-ramping into USDC, and then it actually uses the DEX liquidity itself to swap into any asset you want. They're also doing some cool stuff where like, if you're buying, I think, less than $900 or 900 euros worth, you don't have to do KYC, and they have all those sort of like things to make them, let's make it so getting someone their first $100 in crypto is as easy as possible. Then we can like, that's cool. So I think Cato is doing a lot of cool stuff there, and we're trying to be integrating with them more closely. And then the last one is the fees, right? And I think that's actually what we've already solved in Osmosis at least. With Osmosis, you can pay your transaction fees in any token you want. You don't have to have Osmo. You can pay in Atom, and USDC, and Bitcoin, and ETH. And we wrote this module called fee abstraction, which is taking the same idea that we built for Osmosis and giving it to every Cosmos chain. So, I think one of the biggest issues today people always complain about is like, oh, fees are very, you have to have, in Cosmos there's so many different fee tokens, how do you know that? Students not going to matter, you'll be able to pay with whatever token you want. Fees everywhere. So I think that will help. And then I think we're also doing other stuff as well to improve the fees, other than just paying any token, like making it so, if you have a certain amount of stake, you can do a certain amount of free transactions, or your iPhone device has a unique device ID that we can verify on the chain if we wanted to. And what we could say is like, hey, if you're using this app with a new device, a new Apple device, we can give you like your first 10 transactions for free. So that way it's like,
or maybe credit.
Yeah. And so, and no one's gonna go buy a new iPhone just to get 10 free transactions, right? So you can like do these like tricks like this. So how do we make that onboarding simpler and simpler?
So do you think this also could make like with Apple Pay, can we also like purchase some tokens? Would you like?
Yeah, so this is what Cato is working on. Not only purchasing tokens, you can also be able to pay for anything using your tokens on chain. So you don't have to, so you can like, your app that they're working with like have to pay, and what it will do is you don't have to be holding like, I don't know if anyone's used like crypto.com or something like that. What usually happens is, they frame it as this crypto credit card, but it's kind of fake because in the app, you have to first convert your crypto into US dollar, into that balance, and then you can spend from that balance. And that's like not, you're not actually spending your crypto. You've already sold your crypto, and now you're just like spending from a bank account in the same app. But what Kato's design does is if they use AuthZ, and what they'll do is like if you have at the moment of swipe, they will use AuthZ to pull money from, like, you can have Osmo or Bitcoin or Atom. They'll auto swap it to USDC, send the USDC to their account, and then they'll front the payment. So it's like you're actually at time of purchase, like converting Bitcoin to dollars and spending it.
That was another question. I think this is like the time to ask it. Like, as you know, USDC is coming to Cosmos USDT as well. Even like native BTC, Bitcoin, and Grab Bitcoin. Like, what do you think the impact of that? Like, what is going to be happening? Like, we have all the native tokens here. How is it going to change the game for Cosmos ecosystem?
You mean for Bitcoin specifically, or?
I mean, like, there are new, like, liquid tokens are coming to the Cosmos ecosystem.
Oh, like
yeah, like
USDC,
USDC, USDT, Bitcoin. All of them are native.
Mm-hmm.
They were native, they were breached and like minted on Aggarwal or other. But right now, they are going to be here. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think, let's take the stable coins first. So you have USDC, USDT, and WBTC. You can consider WBTC as kind of like a stable coin. It's issued by a centralized company called BitGo, and it's like tracking the price of it. Just like Circle has USDC, US dollars in a bank account, BitGo has Bitcoin sitting in a custody account, right? So WBTC is also that. So what's nice about these is that they kind of remove the bridge risk. I think, historically, bridges have been one of the biggest points of failure in crypto. One of the biggest hacks have all been bridges. And so, I think people generally just feel a little wary about holding large amounts of capital over these bridges. And the idea is by giving them a more native version of USDC and Tether that's like native to Cosmos, they remove the Aggarwal bridge risk from that, and that will hopefully make them more comfortable holding these large assets. And especially like, if you're, today you're talking about like, I think Osmosis has like $40 million of USDC, but with something like UIDX coming, where they're going to have, hundreds of millions, well, billions, maybe billions of their once the bull market comes, right, of USDC. It's like, okay, that's turning that, you want to remove that bridge risk as much as possible.
Attention.
Right?
I think like a lot of attention are like to the breach, because
Yeah.
like a lot of hacks happen through the breach. So
now, at the same time, though, what we are very cognizant of is making sure the UX of this works. Like right now, we have to, at the end of the day, most people still have their USDC on Ethereum, and so by bridging via Aggarwal, it's very easy to convert that, right? Into the actual USDC on Osmosis. But the problem is, at the moment, to convert Ethereum USDC to Noble USDC, you need to have a Circle account, which requires going through this whole KYC process and everything, which makes it hard for an average user to convert go between that. Circle is planning on fixing this using this thing called CCTP, which will allow anyone to convert between them. But there's some concerns with that where I don't know how widely CCTP is going to be deployed, if it's going to be on, WorldCoin and ZK6, it'll be on Ethereum, Arbitrum, all the places where USDC is the issue, but there's USDC elsewhere, and we want to make that easy to bring in. And also, Tether has nothing like CCTP, and if you look at it, most Tether is on is on either Tron or Ethereum. and the way to convert it, it's very complicated to convert those USDT into the copper USDT. And then same thing with the Bitcoin, right? Converting between WBTC on Ethereum to WBTC on Osmosis is going to be challenging. So this is why we created this thing called alloyed assets. So alloyed assets are this idea where you can have different versions of an asset, but then they're all sitting in stable swap with each other, and then we make the LP share of that stable swap be the canonical version of an asset. So this was originally meant for use for ETH, right? So we currently have ETH from Ethereum via Axlar, but now we have more bridges, right? We have ETH from Wormhole, right? But now we also have ETH from L2s, right? And the idea is like, with Axlar, if you want to bring that ETH from Polygon to Osmosis, you have to first send it back to Ethereum, then to Osmosis, and that gets annoying. So the idea is that this alloyed asset, this one canonical ETH, it'll be made up of a composition, a basket of a bunch of different types of ETH from different places, and you can bridge them directly using whatever bridging solution you want, or at least that's approved by Osmosis, and you'll be able to mint the canonical one. And this makes it very easy to bring assets from anywhere. And so the same thing will actually happen for like USDT, let's say, right? The canonical USDT on Osmosis, and I hope Cosmos more broadly, will be this alloyed asset. And it will be probably like 95% made up of the Cosmos native USDT, but the other 5%, it should be made up of, Axlar bridge from Ethereum, Axlar bridge from Tron, so that way you can just bridge USDT from any of these other places and just make this canonical one, and then you'll have like back-end market makers just arbitraging it back. The UX is very similar to what we're going for here is everyone's favorite exchange, FTX. They had this thing where like you can deposit any stablecoin, and the asset you get on the site is just USD, right? Like it wasn't actually, it didn't matter whether you deposited USDC or BUSD or TrueUSD, or they didn't do Tether because for reasons, but I think that was actually really good UX. Obviously now we don't know if there was any USD there at all, but that's a different problem.
Thank you so much for the explanation. Our time is limited, so I will ask you like almost two questions in one. Also we have developer here, and as far as I know, on Cosmos ecosystem, Osmosis is doing the biggest grant program as we followed. I was wondering also, for the developer who is listening or watching, or later they will watch on YouTube, what would you suggest them, how they could be onboarded to this grant program? What should they do? Could you please enlighten us?
Yeah, so if you go to grants.osmosis.zone, there's a place to apply, but there's also a section of RFPs, like requests for proposals, where these are ideas that we have for the grants that we would like to give, and you can go through this list and find hey, this is something that we have the expertise to build, or we want to build, and you can basically put in an application, and we kind of prioritize these grant apps because these are the things that we are asking for and are looking for. So checking out the list of RFPs. A lot of them tend to be a lot of Cosmos related stuff. So my suggestion for anyone interested in getting into Cosmos development, just don't start with learning the Cosmos SDK. Like Marco talked about, I think Rust is really nice, and I think Cosmos is just a lot easier to get onboarded and start building these utilities. And then one of the things I want to set up is using Kitopia, which is I want to start setting up developer badges where it's hey, just create a PR that solves this issue, and hey, we'll give up this much also. So keep an eye out for that because we're working on setting that up.
Amazing. I think this is really amazing because a lot of grant program is onboarding many people. I would really thank you on behalf of the community. Also, last question, and we can ask to the attendees if they want to ask anything else. I was wondering, the barrier of the technical barrier for node operators, as you know, like many validators are on Cosmos ecosystem, but proof of stake is growing every day, as you mentioned in the earlier stage. How these people can like manage nodes, run nodes, or update their nodes easily? What do you think about onboarding these people? Is there any solution that you have heard?
So I know you guys have this product called Climb, which is really cool. It makes it much easier to. What I really like about it's basically a UI tool that makes it very easy to one-click deploy your own validator nodes. What I really like about it is very focused on like self-hosting, because a lot of these like validator as a service things are actually just like someone else is running the stuff for you, right? And it's like they have access to your funds and stuff. This is like, hey, you put in your own DigitalOcean credentials or whatever cloud you want, and like it really is set up like, really what all these validator as a service providers do is they have a bunch of like Ansible scripts and stuff that like just like build up these things, and it's like, well, instead of gatekeeping that, Climb just makes that like, accessible for you, and you can go one-click deploy all of these things yourself and like do what the validator service providers are just doing. Just is an open source version of it basically. And so yeah, you do still self-custodial, but you get the UX of the validator as a service things. And I think this is going to become more and more important, because I think that like, I think these Cosmos app chains, the jobs of validators are going to get more and more challenging over time. Like I subscribe to something I've been calling sidecar maximalism, where part of the point of having an app chain with your own validator set is you should demand more of them, right? Like the best example of this is Secret Network, right? Secret Network is like, hey, we require all of our validators to also have an SGX node, right? And I think that's like an example of, hey, let's demand more of our validators to do things. With Osmosis, we're very soon, we work with Skip to build this Oracle module, where all the validators are going to have a second node, second process that they run, that is going to be fetching Oracle prices from centralized exchanges or Pith or whatever, and pushing them on-chain using code extensions, which is part of ABZI++, right? So that's like an example of a sidecar. But like, okay, so for Osmosis, for the Osmosis Foundation, we have today, the chain decentralized, right? But a lot of the stuff like the front end, the data libraries, like there's a lot of stuff that is still pretty centralized on our foundation right now, how you access it. And there are alternative UIs, right? You can go to TFM, you can go to Squid, you can go to CoinHall. There are alternative ways of accessing this stuff. But we want to make sure that, hey, at the end of the day right now, at least 90% of the usage, probably more than 90, probably 99% of usage is coming from the main front end. How do we make sure that that thing is decentralized? And so we have a goal of like, by the end of next year, we should have not a single server or SaaS bill with the Osmosis Foundation's name on it. We should be able to shut off our bank account and everything keeps running fine. And so part of that is leading into the validators to do more, right? Like routing servers, validators we should require every validator to run a front-end server for the website. We should require, there's a great Cosmos project called NIM, which is like a better version of Core, basically. It's like, let's require all validators to run NIM nodes as well, so that way, if we want to add
mixed node, I think.
Yeah, mixed node, yeah. So it's like, as regulatory environments get stricter and like the geo blocks become stricter, right? Let's have native built-in ways of making sure there's like global permissionless access. So basically, validators are not going to just have to run the blockchain nodes anymore. They're going to have to run oracles and front-end servers and NIM nodes. And so making this tooling to make it one-click easy for people to spin up all these things is going to be very important.
Thank you so much. I think we are running out of time, but if we have any question, we would love to have any question for Sunny. We have there. Can we? Thank you.
Hi. My name is David, and I have a question about the alloy pool that you mentioned earlier. Yeah, before we had a talk by Mary explaining, the value proposition of Cosmos and IBCs, the light client approach. It's never been hacked. If you're introducing an alloy pool and saying, hey, I'm going to put in all these different versions of the same token, for example, XLR, ETH, or other wrapped versions, aren't you inheriting like more vulnerability? Because what happens if XLR is hacked? Now your entire alloy pool and the LP on top, like that LP token that you're using as the main one, is destabilized. So is that correct? And is then the alloy pool a sustainable solution to DeFi, like fragmentation of liquidity? Is the question.
Yeah, so the alloy pool, it's not actually a normal stable swap, it's a special type of stable swap we wrote called a transmuter. And what that does is it has a bunch of like rate limits built in. So governance can basically say, hey, let's say it's like 95% noble USDC, and then like 5%, let's say 5% access USDC, right? What the rate limit could say is like, hey, the percent of actual USDC can't increase by more than like 1% a day. So even if there is a bridge hack, okay, yes, a little bit more will come in, but it's like, okay, the losses are capped at like 6% basically, right? And we have like different types of limits that we built into the transmuter contract. We can put like a max min, where it's like, okay, the amount of noble USDC itself can never go below 95%. You can say like, oh, the percent of this thing can't change by more than this rate per day. And so by building these rate limits, you make it so if there is these like crazy events, that gives time for governance to like pause the system and like keep the capital, protect the capital that's there. So at the end of the day, but yes, there is more risk, obviously, than just pure noble USDC, and we're basically making this trade-off of like perfect security versus what is better UX. How are we going to let users bridge USDT from Ethereum without this? Right now, the only way to go between USDT on Ethereum to the Cosmos one is like to go through MarginX, like a centralized exchange. So that's kind of not what we want. And so, yeah, and the nice thing is actually is that if you don't want to hold that bridge risk or hold the alloy risk, you don't have to. You can actually just go and hold noble USDC in your account, and every time you want to do a swap, it will actually go ahead and mint. It'll swap it through because the alloy, we actually also treat it like a pool itself, and so you can quote unquote swap from noble USDC into alloy USDC, or it's really just minting it. It'll swap that, and then you can swap it to whatever you're looking to actually buy or whatever. And so yeah, people who are, and you can do that with the ETH one as well. Let's say like, okay, we have the ETH alloy between Axel and Wormhole. You could be like, hey, I don't want that Wormhole bridge risk. I only want to hold the Axel version. You can do that. The canonical one, what does it mean for the alloy version to be canonical? It basically means two things. One is, at least our version of the UI is going to heavily prioritize that. And two, I would like Osmosis governance to focus its incentives on the alloyed version in order to like provide make sure there's enough people holding the alloyed. And then ideally more of the Osmosis DeFi integrations will focus on the alloyed one. So on Mars or Lana, they'll use the alloyed one as the main type of cloud.
So, thank you so much.